Well, it's been a heck of a week in the presidential race, and we've got some local reaction to this very racially driven debate.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Now, look, you know, I could get into everything we got into last night, and if you see, same shirt, you know, if you're a viewer regularly, Friday nights we actually record our program on Thursday, and we try to spread out the conversation a little bit, get a little bit more in depth, and not load you up with a whole bunch of stimulation. But the debate this week, and if you're seeing this show a little bit later than the scheduled date, what is Friday night's date, by the way? It would be August 26th. I think it probably still sticks. So you're seeing this originally on Friday night at midnight, or 7:30 or midnight at an ensuing date. This bigotry thing has really gotten out of hand. This, you know, who's the bigger bigot contest that we got going on in the presidential race is nauseating, I think, to anybody who's fair-minded. Here's a headline that ran in the New York Times yesterday that I think is kind of interesting. Donald Trump's description of Black America is offending those living in it. This is actually a conversation I had on the radio yesterday, trying to figure out if I were a black person, whether I would be motivated by the idea that, you know what the hell else do I have to do other than choose him, because what the Democrats, a la Hillary Clinton, have been doing ain't working. Not sure I'd be motivated by that. And of course, I wouldn't be motivated by this kind of language going on between presidential candidates.
In Mississippi,
Hillary Clinton is a bigot who sees people of color only as votes.
Did you see the woman on his shoulder? She almost gasped for air when he called Hillary Clinton a bigot. Brother Gary Dantzler is no stranger to the community or the show. He's been here before. He's the president of the Black Lives Matter local chapter. And Victor Divine Lombard has this terrific project known as the BLAK card.
Yes.
BLAK, and I'll have him describe. Welcome, gentlemen. Good to see you.
Welcome, Dan. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me. I want to get into this conversation real quick, but explain to people what the BLAK card is. I think that's in the Black group.
Yeah, so BLAK group is basically 21st century Black Wall Street. And we're trying to financially and economically empower African Americans. There are 55 million African Americans in the U.S. Over 50% of those are either unbanked or underbanked.
Unbanked or underbanked?
Unbanked or underbanked.
Meaning
yes.
They don't have checking accounts?
Unbanked means they don't have a bank account at all. Underbanked means they either have a bank account, but they use alternative financial services, such as payday loans, check cashing entities, and so forth.
And so you do?
So we created what is called the BLAK card. And BLAK stands for Building Leverage, Acquiring Knowledge. And with the BLAK card, we're looking to basically empower them financially and economically for wealth building.
Building leverage, acquiring knowledge. The mission you just stated, the execution is what? How do you go about this?
Okay, so we have technology. It's a fintech company that I started called BLAK Fintech. And we basically have the technology that actually attaches the debit card to a bank account. And via that bank account, we actually issue routing numbers, checking account numbers, and those account numbers actually allows a person to opt into the automatic bill pay, and the automatic bill pay history gets reported to the 3 major credit bureaus.
You know what? I'm intrigued by this. I want to talk about some of the bigger picture, but maybe we'll spend some more time at a later date kind of going through this.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, financial acumen is something that everybody needs to have. And I guess what you're saying and being what you're acknowledging is that in the Black community it's waning, or it's not at the level that it's supposed to be?
It's at a very low and poor level. If you look at the African American spending power, over $1 trillion, and you look at the financial condition of African Americans as a group, the gap is huge. So we're trying to close that gap, and we're trying to empower them.
Well, that's a good segue. You know, Donald Trump has done a lot of things in this presidential race. I think he's identified some problems accurately, but I'm not sure he's got a plan and/or goes about the right way of trying to explain how to better those situations. This economic challenge that he cites that Black America has, is he on the mark first before we talk about the rest of the stuff?
Well, I want to say that some of the things he talks about is borderline. Some of it, you know, accuracy. Some of it is, but some of the way he's going about it is definitely incorrect. You know, the way he's educating, you know, America. about African Americans. I think it's not.
I'm not sure he's educating America about African Americans at all.
Well,
I think he's identified something that everybody knows, which is
Right.
that, you know what, on the scorecard educationally and economically, as a community, as a ethnicity, as a race,
Well,
he's underperforming.
Absolutely, he's definitely going about the wrong way. The way what he's performing for African Americans, first of all. Secondly, that he's off the margin when he says he could do better for African Americans. I really doubt that. First of all, but he brought
Why?
because he brought up an interesting point where he said about African Americans not having the chance, and the obligation that we have to educate and empower ourselves. It's not his place. It's up to us to do that, and to, empower each other. So Donald Trump is, he's way off the margin. I mean, he's
Well, look,
right.
he's shopping for votes. He's got a 1%. He's got a 1% tally when it comes to the polls
Right.
in Black America today. Okay,
Yes.
so somebody says, "So listen, you got to get the George Bush's number, which is 8, 12, 13,
Right.
In order to be able to pull this thing off." So now he's focused on you, and he comes to you and he says, "Look, the Democrats have kept you down.
Right.
What the hell else do you have left? I don't know what plan he's offering. I don't know what
Well-
specifics he's giving you." But is he insulting you by just using the
Absolutely.
term, "What the hell do you have left"? Or,
Absolutely.
what do you got to lose?
I think that's his way of shopping around to get African Americans votes and get their attention, into the polls, so he can have these numbers up. Primarily, when you talk about African Americans, we want to listen because he kept us out of the race. Out of the public for a while. We were waiting to hear him say something about African Americans. This is his time now. He had stated about Mexicans and Latino people, so I know it was a matter of time that he was going to say something about African Americans. So we've been watching carefully, and he brought up, a part about African Americans having, empowerment and jobs and opportunity and what he can bring to the table. So I know he's not going to bring that to the table, first of all.
Why?
Because I know he's a bigot. I think he's a racist. It's insulting. I think sometimes in America that we get carried away with, listening to this guy, rant about, Mexicans and how he feels about America, make America great again. I think it's very insulting to even entertain that as Americans. That our country's already great. It's got to get better, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's right.
All right, let me see if I understand. His track record in dealing with the mostly Latino and deportation issue.
Right.
His discussion of refugees and Islam and that, and other major issues that he's discussed, has already set you up to not trust that he's going to be authentic when it comes to black issues. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
So he was in a deficit position to start with. Is that what you guys are thinking?
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think he's insensitive to anybody outside of who he is. And
You
what he
feel like he's
represents.
knocking on the door a little bit late?
It's too late. It's too late.
I definitely agree with that.
Right. We're a very conscious, understanding group of people in America, and we're listening. And he came out. It was a matter of time when he was going to direct at African Americans and saying about what he could do for us, as far as education and job opportunities in America. So he's a little late, and it's unfortunate.
Well,
that-
what could he or anybody... Well, let's talk about the politics of this thing. He is suggesting that the Democrats more or less have let you down. Do you agree?
I think, he made some valid points, and that's why I said that's one of the things. He made a good, valid point. They both let us down, Democrats and Republicans especially, and they never done nothing for us anyway. We have to do for ourselves, and that's the idea of us empowering each other. You understand?
Yeah. I mean, I've talked long. I don't know how much time we have here tonight because I want to get into some of the definitions of what lives matter and all of that. But there's a thing I call the King of the Hill syndrome when it comes to minority politics in America. I've been watching it for a long time, and that is that elected leaders, black, Hispanic, whoever, do a good job of making sure that the people that they serve feel victimized so that they can remain in a position to help you with the victimization problem.
Right.
And I don't know how much... Now, that's a generalization. I'm sure there are leaders and elected leaders that are exempt from that. But there's a syndrome in American politics today, and I think it's on both sides of the aisle, more or less, correct?
You're right.
So is there a new politics that you're looking for here?
Well, close to that was like, a Bernie Sanders, and we and him had discussed a few times.
You were a
about-
Bernie guy?
Oh, absolutely.
Were you a Bernie guy?
I think that, I'm not heavy on politics, but I think that us having the message of self-empowerment and doing for self, I think that's where it has to start. We tired of relying on leaders to guide us and lead us and direct us in what we need to do. It's very clear what we need to do. We see what's going on with the police killings of black males. It happens too frequent. It's been happening. It's now being covered nationally to where we're fed up. African Americans are fed up. It's time for us to take control of our destiny, take control of our resources, take control of our spending power, and show America that we exist. We have value, and we're determined to set that value out.
See, when we come back, we'll elaborate. I just don't know what that means. I want to understand what that means.
Okay.
Stay with us. A great project.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back. So I want to understand from Victor and from Brother Gary what this empowerment thing means. Empowerment. Listen, the project that you're working on, which is to financially educate your peers who happen to be black, I think is a phenomenal exercise. I mean, my God, by the way, I hate to break it to you, every kid in America today is under financially educated. I mean, I go to college classes and I ask them about how much money they think they're going to make for the career they want to do, and they go, oh, well, they have no idea. And the cost of living, da 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 da. I mean, we have done a terrible job in the school systems in America today, getting kids ready for actually the real world. So, kudos to you, but I hate to break it to you, it ain't just a black problem.
Oh,
it's
no,
a
not
problem
at all.
in
No,
America
it's
today.
a problem across America.
The debt
no
people
question.
and the problems that people are in. But this notion, hone in for me what taking it white. On the radio, phone lines moving all the time.
Right.
White America will ring my phone lines off the hook and say, you know what, these people, and I hate that
Right.
discussion.
Right.
But black Americans need to take ownership of things like fatherless families, for an example. Da 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 da. You know, the Bill Cosby speech was great, and then Bill Cosby let everybody down because we found out that he's a creep, right?
Right.
But his message still resonates, I think.
Right.
So we get that part, which is God helps those who help themselves. And so now you guys want to, and your philosophy is we got to take this on ourselves. Don't tell us what we need to do. We know what we need to do. But what is it that you need to do? Because progress is fair-minded people who happen to be white are looking at so much progress in black America today, and all we want to do is look at you as equity. Oh, I just want to look at you guys as partners on the planet. I don't want to so tell me what the reality is of this empowerment thing, and I'll shut up.
I mean, that's your personal perspective. But if we look at white America as a whole, I don't think that's what the perspective is. Why do we focus on African Americans?
What is the perspective of white America, you think?
Well, I mean, to keep us limited, to keep us
to keep you down,
to keep us limited. Not so much keep us down, but keep us limited. There's not. I don't think there's a fair playing field, right? If you would, systemic white supremacy is in place. It's always been in place. It's still in place.
These are facts.
These are things that take it's a while to
I'm not going to
change.
deny that there's inequity still. There's, and too many listeners to my radio show call and say it's a fabrication. It's not. At the same time, what specifically defines taking care of business ourselves? What does that mean?
I mean, I think it means us taking responsibility, and that starts with the elders teaching the younger ones, preparing them, raising them up in the right way. Public school doesn't really do a good job of preparing
people of color.
Especially people of color.
Does it mean
for the
segregation?
workforce.
No segregation.
It's not even about segregation. We can integrate and work amongst each other, but black people have to consciously take control of their own destiny.
Right. If we spend $1 trillion a year in equity and having these type of empowerment of money, and we're not using it in the right fashion, that's our fault.
Give me an example of not using it well and what you should be doing.
Well, African Americans are mainly a majority of them are mainly consumers. They're not producers. They don't produce any goods for themselves, and they don't create things for themselves, jobs in their community. The black dollar doesn't stay in the community, but probably
it doesn't circulate.
Not even an hour. It doesn't circulate within the community.
Circulate.
It goes outside the community.
Right.
Every other group in America has controlled their resources, has controlled their economic power, their spending power. African Americans do not. We're the only group with such a high spending power of over $1 trillion.
So you want to see a marketing campaign amongst African Americans that says spend amongst yourselves? I mean, it's not unlike.
No, that's only one aspect of it. We're talking about build wealth, build wealth, buy land, purchase property, create businesses, create startups. These are the things that we need to do because we know that money influences politics.
Right. It's a
Now
huge
tell me that's
part
just a
of it.
notion or that's fabricated. Money
Right.
influences politics.
Right.
So we have no control of our economic resources. We have no financial economic power or control our power.
Okay, so
And
what
do we
will
do?
the day look like, real quick? What will the day look like when you think you've started to control it? What will be the evidence?
When we can lobby for laws that protect us.
Right.
That protect us in a way we don't have to worry about being killed by police in the streets of
We're
at
safe
a
in our
regular traffic
communities.
stop.
Right, we're safe, and it goes back to the empowerment. That's the empowerment. We're not disoccluding white America. We're saying we want to educate white America. This is what you're doing is wrong, and we had enough education, enough time now to rebuild ourselves. So we're the elders to help us. We got to help our communities.
All right, I knew this was going to be a frustrating conversation, not because of what they're saying, but because of the time we have. We have another guest who talks about the Lives Matter movement, not just black. Stay tuned. And I'm sure if you've been watching the program and you're waiting for, all right, let's get this Black Lives Matter thing, Dan. Let's get this Black Lives Matter thing, Dan. Well, guess what? Linda Reyes joins Brother Gary, and she would represent that it's just not Black Lives Matter anymore. It's Black and Latino Lives Matter, correct?
Well, I think Black Lives Matter encompasses us all. I'm an indigenous woman, and I represent the entire culture as a Latina, as an African American in the community, and it's really all encompassing. And it's not a separate matter. I feel like it's a problem that the simple fact that we have to say Black Lives Matter, that's a problem. And to separate the two, for me, it's very discouraging because all lives don't matter, and that's just the reality of it.
I agree.
You need to elaborate on that notion of all lives don't matter.
Really,
You need to explain that further.
Again, we're dealing with this movement, Black Lives Matter. It's very real for us. It's very real for our culture. It's very real.
Am I correct when Lexi writes for me, Black and Latinos life matter? I mean, you're being referred to as someone that represents that movement. Has this movement formally broadened to include the term Latino, or are we mistaken in referring to you that
Absolutely,
way?
it does include Latinos.
Okay.
Latinos are going through the exact same discrimination, through the exact same prejudice, and I feel like in colonialism we separate, and again we're one. We are one, and we're not. Black Lives Matter coming up is just saying I want to be honored as part of that. I want to be treated as human. I don't want to walk into a workplace and be expected to fail because I'm Latina, because I identify as an Afro-Latina, because I grew up around this culture. There's an automatic standard for failure, and that's where I feel it's important to say Black Lives Matter.
This all came from a terrible shooting, and a lot of people in the country, and folks will dial my line and say, this whole thing is a fabrication because the actual genesis of the term Black Lives Matter came from a faulty premise that this gentleman was shot with his hands up and da-da-da-da-da. And so people will go back to that and suggest that this concoction of a brand or a marketing theme has led everybody astray. At the same time, we're here having a conversation about equity. And however we got here seems to me to be fair game. But now we're how long into this Black Lives Matter movement? A couple of years?
It's been, well, this, for the record, I want to say that I always been Black Lives Matter before Black Lives Matter even came about.
Yeah, but you didn't write it, you joined it.
No, I mean, when you say Black Lives Matter, that means you, as well as a part of Black Lives Matter, her, anybody on the discussion of the panel. But the problem is that, when someone come about with something positive, we get dismantled, torn apart, discouraged. After a while, they try to, find out the alignment of it and just tear it apart,
Well, how long do you think we're going to be hung up on the brand? Black Lives Matter? I mean, will there ever be a movement of the brand to a place that accommodates a little bit more empathy on the part of white America? Like, we matter too, as opposed to, you know, Black Lives Matter too. I mean,
of course you do.
Just the addition of the word, I think, might just have soothed the conversation and made it more constructive. Am I missing something?
I think it's interesting that we don't separate white America. We don't separate Polish from Irish, from Portuguese, from Italian.
True.
But then when it comes to Black America, we separate Hispanics, we separate Haitians, we separate Dominicans, we separate everybody.
Everybody.
And
Absolutely.
Well, we do it by forms with the IRS, for crying out loud. I mean, this has been a cultural, systemic thing that has been. I don't know that it's necessarily in everybody's heart to start. I mean, it's what we're born into. Definitions of who people are something that we've been born into.
Right, but Dan, see, there's the problem is this: the history behind America. See, that's the problem. We're not acknowledging that. We're still not acknowledging the fact that why we going to say Black Lives Matter is going to continue to say Black Lives Matter, because there's a whole system of racism in America that's still attending right now and present. And the more you go into it, the more you can understand and appreciate Black Lives Matter, because we're not just about a guy getting shot in the streets. We've been getting shot for years, for decades in the streets. You understand? So it's come to the forefront. Now it's becoming political.
Did I not follow up right on my question? If you added the word "to," would it hurt the movement? Do you understand what I'm saying? Just in terms of sometimes the message has got to be received more palatably.
I think it belittles the movement in a way, because again, it's about coming together. And so, how do we all come together for this community, for this Black community, but still separate them from the whole? To me, that really makes no sense, and it really gets under my skin when I want to advocate for somebody, or when I want to express myself in the terms of Black Lives Matter, and somebody says, well, all life matters. Like, okay, now you're just, obviously they don't, because now you're just saying Black lives don't matter more. Like,
well, that's the history.
Separates.
That's the history of America. That's the separation and the disparities that we have, that the separation continues because there's education. And when you don't have the right, proper education about race relations, and that's what's going to happen, where they're going to have discussions on why is this, why is that, and why is that.
Listen, I got to tell you, I think, and I say this respectfully, I hope you receive it that way.
Absolutely.
Your approach has become much more sophisticated in the time that we first met,
Okay.
and I'm impressed by that. Impressed by your intellect as well. Would you join me on the radio next week for a longer conversation?
Absolutely.
And come back here when we can. We're out of time. We'll be right back. So this conversation is going to continue next week on the radio, most likely Monday, Tuesday. I will advise you of that. We got to go. We'll see you on the radio, or hear you on the radio, 3 to 6 weekdays on WPRO. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. Good night.